Welcome to the next episode of Discipline, Desire, Dedication. My name is Dakota Lang, along our co-host, Garrett Cotten. Today, we are sitting back down with our San Antonio market owner for Performance Windows, Mr. Thomas Hernandez. He opened his market in April 1st of 2025. He's had a tremendous amount of success, since opening that market, and spun off a market owner as well. And also, has endured many of challenges. And, that's something that we want to do a deep dive in today, just kind of talk about some of the failures, some of the achievements that he's accomplished, and really just get a deep dive on, his thought process on, where he's at today and the desire of what he's going to accomplish here in the future. So welcome, brother.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, super glad to have you back on, dude.
Yeah, it's been like 9 months, 8 or 9 months.
I missed the last one. I had a baby on this weekend, so
yeah, it didn't count. That's what I was thinking.
So we had to get this one back to get both of us on there.
Yeah, that's right. And we couldn't have picked a better time, to be honest with you. So
let's talk about it.
But dude, let's jump right into it. You know what I mean? So you had almost a full year of being a market owner.
Yeah.
Let's talk about, when you first, and this goes for people that are, opening up a business as well. The performance windows aspect is relative, I guess is the correct word I'm looking for. But kind of talk about that. You went and opened up that market. Kind of talk about some of the emotions that you were feeling, some of the things that were running through your head. Were you nervous? Were you excited? Yeah. And then, along that journey, what are some challenges that you encountered and, stuff like that?
No, I think, starting off the bat, I was terrified. Like that was not even a secret. Like, I talked to a lot of other people who open offices, and I'm always like, what was your thoughts? And they're like, I was super cocky. I thought it was going to be smooth sailing. I had the complete opposite experience. Mm-hmm. Like I was terrified. But mainly because I was leaving Austin, and at that time it was like $1.4 million months back to back. People are qualifying 2 or 3 people qualifying every day. It just felt like to leave such a successful office, the first thing I would say I was worried about were my people, right? How are they going to feel leaving this giant $1 million office to go start something new with me, right? Obviously I felt immense amount of gratitude, right? Like I was happy that they believed in me enough, but I was definitely worried about that for sure.
Yeah, going into it as well. So just based on, I wasn't there for your last pod, so I was listening to that podcast on my way over here today.
Yeah.
So one thing you said in that podcast was like right off the jump, up to 5 people living at your house at one point.
Yeah.
Was that like, as a market owner, you had 5 people in the house, or as a closer?
For the first 2 months of the San Antonio office, the whole office except one person lived at my house.
Yeah. So along with that, it kind of goes into, I was relating, today versus when we first got into the market. Talk about the amount of attention that was needed whenever you had 5 people living in your house.
Yeah.
You're molding the culture for your office.
No, it's just no clock out, right? Like we would, it's funny because we could have just ran more than meeting at the house basically, right? Like we all got ready, but went to the office, good or bad day, we were going to come home and talk about it. Yeah. Right. So, and it's funny because it's exactly what you said. It's a culture thing, right? If 3 or 4 people are doing great, but one person's not doing great, they can't escape it. They're coming home and we're all having a great dinner, talking about how awesome it was, how much money we made today. And then there's that one guy sitting at the end of the table, kind of just quietly eating his food. Right.
Yeah.
There was a little bit of that, but I think it was just a nonstop vision building. Like everybody had 60 days, right? Yeah. So at the end of the day, it was going to come to an end. Like everybody was going to move out, and whether you were going to move out or go home or not be here anymore was kind of the idea of it. Is like, I felt like most people felt like I have 60 days to decide if I'm going to stay in San Antonio or not.
How do you, from going through that experience, because that's something that myself and Garrett did, throughout our whole career, all the way and literally until I moved to Utah, and the same for him, is we've constantly had people living in our house, coming home. If you had a bad day, you were still coming home.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
We were talking about it.
Yeah, we were talking about it, right?
Just on that, I've had people not come home.
Yeah, 100%.
I go to sleep and go to bed, and then I wake up in there in the bed in the morning.
Yeah. I'm going to the gym tonight, bro.
Oh yeah, always put. Yeah, I'm gonna go to the gym tonight. I've heard that many a times.
Yeah.
But talk about like how that really helped mold the culture for your office, because with people and listeners now that are closers that are in performance windows that are going to be market owners this year, right? This is huge advice that I give to them every time is fill the rooms.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Fill the rooms. You got to fill the rooms, because if you don't fill the rooms and everybody's dispersed right off the bat when you don't have the opportunity to build that core for your culture, then you're not ever going to be able to establish it.
No.
So talk about, the pros that you had, and maybe even try to think, even though you didn't experience it, but maybe kind of think about what are some of the things that you could have lost on if you didn't do that.
Yeah. So I love this question, and I'll tell you why. It's first thing about it is, I always tell people this. I wanted the knockers to feel like the new people had to prove themselves to them first, right? Like, let alone me get my approval, right? I'm the market owner. I'm the last line of defense. I'm everything, right? So, of course, onboarding people, you initially tell yourself, I'm going to see it through, right? I'm going to give this guy everything he needs to see success, and Performance Windows makes that very easy with all our structure. But yeah, I wanted the room to be like, what do you think about this guy? And it would get to the point where knockers and closers would come up to me and say, that guy's going to be a stud, right? Let's go all in on him. Taking ownership over the office, right? That is culture to me. Whenever you have the knockers almost having to do like a screening of new people to say, hey, does this guy belong here or not? It makes the whole thing a lot easier, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're not worried so much if it just doesn't feel like it's all on your back, And then to answer your question, though, what could have gone wrong? There was a decision I made early on where a couple people in my house initially wanted to move out together, right? They wanted to go from my house to roommates in another house, and I shut it down immediately. I was like, no, you guys are all running your own race. It's all a different story. I didn't want anybody moving out and then giving themselves another 60 days or another comfort with someone else in the office.
It comes back to control on that aspect too, because we've seen the system. We call it a 60-day sacrifice, and we've seen it work so many times in our right in front of us. Yeah. And we've seen people as well that go out to do that. They'll go book a roommate, but that's not how we did it.
No,
that's too much comfort. You got a roommate now that, I could slack up this month. He's going to cover rent. It just opens a door for, error. That type of stuff.
And I would say the big fear in that is that also, if one goes wrong, you might lose both.
Yeah.
Right. So it was better to lose one who was going to either get comfortable or get negative, let them, walk themselves off the plank without taking someone with them.
I agree with that. Cotten always had a quote, and I'm going to let you say it, but it was always about, if you bring one negative person into the room, it drops productivity by whatever.
Yeah. I used to tell people all the time, and I don't know where I got it from a podcast or something, but it said by bringing one positive individual into the room, you are increasing the productivity by everybody around by 15%.
Yep.
But if you bring one negative person, somebody who's got that job mentality, clock in, clock out, I'm here, nobody's watching me, that type of mentality, it decreases the productivity of everybody in the room by 30%. So it's so important to have control over, for us, it's more than a job. It's control of what they're doing on the doors, in the houses, control of what they say, as well as having some control and guidance in their outside of life. We always talk about the cold showers, the working out, the eating right. It's more than just a job. But what's some ways that talk about some like successes and failures you've seen over the last year as a market owner where you think you've done really good at that and maybe not so much?
Yeah, it's just about because everybody looks a little bit different, right? Mm-hmm. It's funny because like it's easy to just say, wake up in the morning, go to the gym, mm-hmm. right? That's a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
And until you run into the guy who loves going to the gym,
yep.
right? Then it's not a hard thing to do. I had a guy who worked in my office, and one thing we used to talk about is journaling and going to the gym, cold showers and all that stuff. And as if it was a sacrifice, right? Because for some people it is.
Yeah. For me, I've never done that in my life. Good luck.
Yeah.
It takes attention.
This guy loved it though, right? He loved journaling. He loved going to the gym and he wasn't getting better, right? But to the naked eye, you're looking at this guy like, what's going on? Like he's doing all the right things. Why isn't he seeing success? Ultimately, he still wasn't sacrificing, right? So I think it's just about learning your people, right? Like
seeing behind the closed doors of what they're not showing you. There's tons of examples in my time where I've had people who, they're doing everything right on paper, but outside of work, they might even be showing up to the gym, meeting us for basketball and stuff. But when they get their silent hour to themselves, they self-sabotage, but when you pull that out of the darkness, that's when we can help them.
Yeah.
And I think, and also like on top of that topic is like, we're not a bodybuilding company. You know what I mean? Some people can get the misinterpretation of like, when we tell you to go to, choose hard, take a cold shower, do the cold plunge, you know what I mean? Go to the gym, eat healthy foods, right? Is more the fact of just the discipline aspect that you're doing what you're saying you're going to do rather than us training you to be a bodybuilder, right? You know what I mean? So some people that fall into that trap, I would say, is people that they think they're doing everything that they can whenever they're going to the gym, the cold plunge. But guess what? When they walk into the office on a Wednesday morning and then they think the work's already done because they already went to the gym, when in reality, the work's starting now. You know, now we're at work. You know what I mean? So not getting that false sense of satisfaction that you're doing everything that you can when all you got to do is just simply do more.
Yeah, don't confuse the productivity. It's a personal development job, but along with, it's the consistency of showing up to the gym every day or holding yourself accountable. It's also on those doors, choosing hard. I think for me, it always comes back to the choosing hard aspect. If you choose the easy things in life, then your life is really hard. If you choose the really hard things in life, then your life is going to be really easy. And it's like on the doors, it translates, you see those knockers that, oh, we're okay. Thanks anyways. And we just turn around and walk away. That's easy. You're choosing to make those easy choices. But some people will be confused and they're like, oh, I worked out this morning. I took my cold shower.
What would you so going through, like I said, you started Market Owner in April of last year, went through that, had a big boom. What was the first month? You did 700K?
Like 750, yeah.
750, which is a big milestone for new offices opening up, right?
At the time, it was the best first month in the company.
Right, exactly. You set the bar, which was incredible. And you had some of those highs, but also at the same time, you've had some real lows, right? Talk about, even in the state of your office right now, right? You can really struggling trying to figure that out. At the beginning of your career, you always, we were talking about it the other day or literally last night or whatever, is this month, if you don't have anybody qualify, will be the first month since you were a market owner that nobody has qualified to become a closer. So earlier in your career, you had people, multiple people qualifying. So you go from managing 2 closers to now you're looking at, you got 6 brand new closers. Talk about some of the challenges that you've encountered to be able to, onboard new closers, multiple at one time. Talk about some of the challenges that you had to face.
Yeah, no, it can be tough, right? Like when you have a new closer, to me, it's just a new leader, right? And it's another person you have to trust to the fullest potential, right? Like this isn't a guy that you can you're not supposed to, I guess, worrying about what they're doing, right? If you qualify in my eyes, you prove to yourself and you prove to the company that you deserve a promotion, right? Like that's the borderline understanding. What I've realized now is that there's a whole nother grind ahead of them, right? And it's mainly because my experience was different. Sometimes I expect everybody to have the same experience as me where I was telling Levi, like when I got that last shout out to make me a closer because I already had my recruits out the way, I genuinely felt like I won the lottery. Like I went home, I told Vanessa, hey, order something, right? It's done now. Life is over.
Break out the red panties, baby.
Yeah, it's exactly what it felt like, And so for me, I took the promotion so serious and I did great right off the bat. I didn't experience like a an early slump or anything. Like for my first couple months of closing, it was just reaping all the rewards.
Yeah.
So sometimes I expect that to be everybody, but it's not, right? Closing is a completely different job than knocking. And on top of it, you have a whole different set of responsibilities. So I think one of the big struggles is trying to
well, let me cut you off right there, because how you said it's not, how you said how you felt is not the same as everybody, which I do agree, but also do disagree, right? Yeah. Because also I think that does come on to a leadership aspect of when we go back to saying pressure is privilege, right? So if people get that promotion and they feel like, in your instance, you're like, I won the lottery, but I still haven't collected my check. You know what I mean? Right? If they feel like they've already collected their check before they made any money, then in reality, you ain't done nothing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think one of the biggest things with onboarding a lot of new people like that is keeping that pressure on them, right? You haven't earned your stripe as a closer just because you qualified. There's so many people within the company that is qualified that guess what? They don't work here no more.
Yeah.
Never
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
A lot.
Never. They don't work here no more. Like nobody even knows their name. They're Mr. Irrelevant. Nobody even talks about them, right?
Because they achieved the short-term goal and there was not a bigger goal past that,
Yeah.
So I think it comes back to that drawing the vision. As soon as they get in that closer room, it's like, all right, now it's time. Let's start looking about where we moving.
Yep.
Who's coming with you, getting back into that mindset, holding them accountable to the standards that you did whenever you were growing as a leader yourself. Because I think one thing that you got to struggle with too is you've got some young people in your office that get promoted. You're a young market owner as well. So one of the hardships that we experienced was one of my first recruit, the first guy in here, he was market owner material, but when he came in, he was young. And he would sacrifice, he would always put family or others before company, because he's young and he didn't know better. But if he could have been a little bit older and, had a little bit more experience, more knowledge, he probably would have been a market owner with this company, But I mean, that's probably a pretty big struggle is some of these young people that are in your office. It's your job to develop those leadership skills, so.
And
I think that is a very good, valid point. I think that's something that a lot of people can listen to is especially managing because I'm 29 years old. You're same age. How old are you, Thomas?
23.
23 years old, right? Running $1 million office.
Yeah.
When you're managing people that are 20, 21 years old, people that can't even buy alcohol yet, you know what I mean?
You got to sell them about sacrificing for the rest. I mean, this little bit of time, but it's going to pay for the rest of your life.
Yeah, they can't even think past tomorrow.
Yeah, it's hard, but that's where it takes patience and it takes accountability and control. Control going back to, with 6 closers in your room, like I know Mark's the newest closer that's lived in your house, but he lived in your house longer than the anticipated time, so we're getting away from our core systems and we're not seeing the same results, right? But it's because we weren't doing what we were doing. When you came in hot and was sacrificing,
60 days.
You were sacrificing and there was a pressure where everybody knew it, right? So it's just getting back to that is what it's going to take to get your office right. It's, you've done it once, you can do it again.
It's exactly what I told Dakota last night as I was like, there's no doubt in my mind that what I did was just a direct result of what I was doing when I was doing the right things, right?
Yep.
And, it's just, we were talking about it. Like everybody learns different, but the standard is the same. And that is whenever I felt like, things were just clicking. Yeah.
And then also, I think one of the big points is like we were talking about pressure, applying that pressure and also applying pressure to yourself, right? Remember we were talking about last night, and it's something that, I still do on a daily basis whenever, at the same time, like you're always going to have critiques out or people that are going to critique you, judge you, blah, blah, blah. But all that shit's irrelevant.
Yep.
Straight up. That shit is irrelevant. The biggest critique that you got to have is yourself. You got to be able to, whenever you aren't doing what you're supposed to be doing, like Cotten was saying, right? Whenever he saw a slump as a market owner, his first thing was to, okay, I need to get somebody in my house. You know what I mean? But that all starts with, even at that step, it all starts with looking yourself in the mirror and say, what am I not doing to get the results that I want? And if you do that, right, I'll always use the baseball analogy, right? Major League Baseball players, guess what? They bat 300. Guess where they at? The Hall of Fame. You know what I mean? Guess what? They still failed 70% of the time, but somebody who has a batting average of 250, they not in the Hall of Fame. You know what I mean? It's not that big of a gap difference, but what makes greats greats, or what separates goods from greats is the shorter, how do I want to say it? The shorter downfall. You know what I mean? They're able to recognize their downfall and look themselves in the mirror before they extend it for a longer period. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%.
So looking at yourself in the mirror and recognizing, okay, am I doing everything that I need to do to be able to get the results that I want? And I think that's something that we've all taken into our own careers that a lot of people can take from the listeners. You know what I mean? From somebody that has ran a huge market, produced more closers in the year than almost anybody else in the company, to be honest with you. You know what I mean? And still having the manpower that you have right now, but not getting the results that you want.
Yeah, it's probably the most frustrating thing in the world, honestly. But it's exactly what you said. Like the first step is genuinely just acceptance, right? Acknowledging like, all right, something is off. And then exactly what you said, move into the problem solving aspect.
I used to always feel like I'm a simple creature up here. And it's corny, but like even on the aspect of getting a sale as a knocker, if I went out and I was as a knocker, I'm ignorant, I don't know anything, I go get a sale in that point, I would tell myself that whatever I did yesterday, I need to do exactly that yesterday. I'd wear the same clothes. I wouldn't even wash them. I'd fix my hair the same way. I'd try and poop at the exact same time that I did the day before. But it's just from replicating, because if I did it once and it paid off successfully, then I just need to do that again. And then you get on a bigger scale as a market owner. You go and you tell yourself, hey, a couple months back, we were doing $1 million months. We were winning. What was I doing in those $1 million months? What was I wearing? What did my hair look like? I'm simple-minded up here. But that's really and truly what's worked to help me to progress in this company is I go back to the basics and I say, hey, we're not winning right now. Nobody's in my house. That's when I get somebody in my house, we go back to winning. Go back to the gym and, all the other habits outside of work. So, I think it just comes back to getting back onto the grind of like it comes back to pointing at myself every single day. Even as a regional, I don't have control in your office. I don't have control in any of my offices. But whenever everybody's starting to do bad, I start getting hungry. I'm like, all right, how can I get somebody in my house right now? Like, how do I get back to doing that again? Because I got to develop, in my mind, I got to start developing a market owner, from scratch. Because that's when you're doing that and you're showing somebody how to change their life on a daily basis, then you're just being the best version of yourself.
And even like Cotten was saying, even in a regional aspect, whenever you have an office that's not getting the production that you want to see out of it, and that that it's capable out of it, right? It starts with us too.
Yep.
Looking ourselves in the mirror and say, okay, are we doing everything that we can do to help this office get to the point that it needs to be, getting the results that we want to do, right? So, and I think that just runs down the chain, right? Runs down the chain of checking yourself, making sure you're doing everything that you're supposed to do, and I always say to get the results that you want to get.
Yeah, I really love what you said actually about keeping it basic. Like I think even just in a performance window standpoint, like having someone in your house starting from scratch where they just passed off script. One thing I will say is like back to having a ton of brand new people in my house who barely knock doors. When you're teaching them the basics, outside of work, right? Like right before dinner, what it actually does is allow you to kind of have that same patience in the normal meeting, right? Where you're like, all right, I know I've gone over this a million times, but it's received a lot better because you're so focused on it. So that's a really good point.
Constantly. It's like surrounded by that new person.
Awesome. Well, you got any last things you want to say?
No, we're just a lot of big things coming. Obviously, San Antonio will reach back to its greatness, despite what Garrett thinks. But yeah, we're gonna have a lot of cool stuff. If you're looking to work in San Antonio, reach out to me on Instagram. It is _King Bahama _. We got some big things coming in Texas, so we're excited for that.
He's trying to recruit now. You notice that?
I got some room in my house actually. But yeah, really big things coming. And next time I'll be on here, I will be a regional. So,
Heck yeah.
Well,
let's go, bro. I know we both believe in you.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, absolutely.
You got big things coming, bro.
Yeah, big things.
Well, heck yeah. Well, hey, we appreciate all of you watching. Like always, make sure if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. And then also there's it looks like a little ring bell. Click that as well. It'll notify you every time that we drop a new episode. And also like and subscribe if you're on Facebook or Instagram. And drop a comment below. And we love all of you, and we'll catch you next time.